Our next speaker, Dr. Narottama Sindhu, and I invite our scientific committee member, Dr. Parikshit Dokte, to please introduce Dr. Narottama Sindhu. Yeah.
Thank you.
Parikshit, your voice is echoing. Yeah. Parikshit, are you there?
Can we have Dr. Sindhu's slide?
Yeah, it is there. It is already on the slide share.
Dr. Narottama Sindhu has done her MBBS and MD from AIIM and has numerous indexed international publications. She has been the recipient of the HS training and is a visiting glaucoma consultant in numerous top hospitals in Delhi. Over to you, Dr. Sindhu.
Dr. Sindhu, your slide share, please.
Dr. Narottama? Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible now. Your slides are there.
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
My greetings to all the attendees and my thanks to Scientific Committee AIUS for giving me this opportunity. I'll be presenting a case of a juvenile ocular hypertension. This case has a lot of interesting findings, including from the history onwards. However, here we are presenting this case for the therapeutic dilemma which we find ourselves in and would like to hear from the experts regarding it. This case is about a 19-year-old male who is an engineering student from Ludhiana, where he was detected to have high intraocular pressure in December 2015 when he presented for his complaints of intermittent diminution of vision in the left eye. He would experience blurring of vision only while writing his exams. He was put on treatment. Also, they had found that he was using topical steroids and he was asked to stop that. There is a history of cracker injury in the left eye 5 years back, for which a day of patching sufficed and he remained asymptomatic later on. Nobody in the family has glaucoma. When we saw him in March 2016, he had pressure of 30 in the right and 38 in the left eye, and he had stopped treatment 2 days back. Also, his corneas were found to be very thick, almost approaching to 600. He enjoyed good visual acuity with moderate hypermetropic correction. He had shallow AC with short axial length. Angles had signs of immaturity, but there was no membrane on UBM. In few quadrants, he had a goniodysgenesis type 2 variety, but there was no angle recession. His discs were small and hyperemic, but there was no evidence of any functional or structural damage, glaucomatous damage. Now coming on to the treatment history in detail, including the one he had at RP Center and PGI Chandigarh. When we started him on medical treatment, we always had the dilemma, what should be his initial target pressure? Considering his thick CCT, he just being an ocular hypertension patient, but presenting at a young age. So with 2 medication, when we had the pressure in the right eye in mid-teens, we were quite happy about it. And in the left eye, with 4 medications, we could achieve only pressure in mid-20s, and we were just about okay with that. However, we noticed that his pressures would fluctuate, and we also observed that fluctuation in pressure would be in relation to him appearing for exams. So looking at this pattern of fluctuation and the way he presented, we felt that the stress is one of the main contributors in his high intraocular pressure. So we advocated him to practice meditation, which he tried doing it. Also over the time, we realized that he is a non-responder to travoprost and to tefloprost. Now later, the pressures settled down around in late 30s and the left eye became symptomatic also. The symptoms this time were different. He would have blurring of vision in the morning, lasting always less than half an hour, most of the time around 10 minutes, in spite of him having good specular count and he being adequately covered for possible dry eye. We tried changing the timings of the medicine, but nothing would work. So in order to avoid surgery in ocular hypertension patient at this age, we thought of giving him a trial of SLT, but there was no response. So in December 2016, he was taken up for trial with Mito. However, we had early failure despite giving him 5 FU injections, advocating digital massage, and later doing needling. From August 2017, for next 12-13 months, he had series of surgical interventions in the form of needling second time in the trap, then later second trap with mitomycin, this time done in the supratemporal quadrant. First was done in the supranasal quadrant. However, in the post-op period, he had aqueous misdirection, which was successfully managed medically. This also had an early failure. The needling was done and also gonioid synecholysis. So here we had a refractory eye where nothing had worked. Then he was given an option of undergoing either a tube surgery or DLCP. Now for a safe tube surgery in an eye like that, which had a shallow AC, it would have been imperative to remove his lens and do the IOL implantation, and same was told to him. He, however, refused to undergo any more surgical interventions and opted for DLCP. Unfortunately, we had the most unfavorable outcome despite having the parameters of DLCP within the recommended range. Now, reflecting back, what could have caused it? Try to look for the reasons of all those which have been documented in the literature. We didn't find any. However, we feel that the small eye, the extra small eye in his case did us in. And we say it with the knowledge that the eye which is small is compact and the energy which you deliver is going to get taken up by the tissues more effectively. So if I say that delivered energy per unit tissue volume or area is going to be higher in such an eye, probably I may not be wrong. So look, keeping this in mind, we feel that in such small eye, either we should restrict our treatment only to 180 degree against 270 or 360 as recommended, or we give lesser number of spots, maybe 3 or 4 per quadrant as against 6 which has been recommended. So now coming on to the right eye, slowly the need of anti-glaucoma medication increased, and in August 2017 he was on 4 medications, and we also realized that this eye was super steroid responder, if I may use this term, because when low potency steroid eye drops were used in the left eye, within few doses the right eye would show the response, and we in fact had tough time in controlling the right eye when we were trying to manage this unfortunate left eye, and we had to use Pilo also at that time, which was later withdrawn. We also noticed that right eye would exhibit partial cycloplegic response in the form of near vision difficulty with the use of atropine eye ointment in the left eye, and this was something which I was seeing for the first time and was a new learning for me. Now we have this eye with a very high intraocular pressure, maximum measured 44 on 4 medications. So he was advised to use oral medication. However, he does not tolerate oral acetazolamide that well. The last intraocular pressure measured was in January 2020, and we were pleasantly surprised to find the pressure of 36. And we also realized that by this time he had joined some job, and he admitted to be happy and relaxed. His next follow-up was due in March. However, we have not seen him as yet. His disc and fields have remained unchanged. We would have liked this patient to be followed for early glaucomatous damage on OCT. But however, the machine which we have does not have the integrated eye tracking system. So for this patient, we have therapeutic dilemma on 2 accounts. One, how to approach to control the pressure. And secondly, what should be the initial target IOP in his case? Should we continue him on medical management, as now we are seeing a downward trend and there have been no evidence of progression over all these years, and we know that his measured pressure is going to be much higher than his true pressure, and hoping it to be a self-limiting large episodic fluctuation. Here I would like to share an anecdotal observation from one of my patients who is also a juvenile glaucoma patient. And in her case, I would notice that every winter her pressure would go from mid-teens to 40s for no obvious reason. And as the winters pass by, her pressures tend to come back. So this is something unusual, which we normally don't see and read. We know that seasonal fluctuation is in the form of 3 or 4 millimeter. Same way in this patient, this is quite unusual. But is it really an episodic fluctuation? Doesn't appear to be so, because the pressure have been progressively increasing. And now we have a symptomatic eye And we also fear what if he develops a vascular block looking at his crowded small disc. Now, if that is not an option, should we go for a surgical intervention, knowing that he had a aqueous misdirection in the left eye and possible that right eye may also develop? Now, in that case, if we do undertake a surgery, should we be going for a surgical conjunctiva sparing surgery in the form of microimplants? But the pressure seems to be too high for that. Something like goniotomy, knowing that there is no membrane seen on UBM, and also how safe it would be to go through the shallow AC, and would it be necessary to tackle the eye which actually has a type 2 goniodystogenesis, and that happens to be on the temporal side, and managing the temporal side will be challenging? Or we just go ahead with the trap with some modification in the form of increasing the dose and duration of mitomycin or combining it with tenectomy. But what if that also fails, and soon we will realize that we will be running off with the options at this young age, and he being just an ocular hypertension patient. Whatever we may decide to do, and next thing is, can we afford to have an initial target pressure in him to be on the higher side, knowing that he is just an ocular hypertension patient and a thick corneas, and in the past the optic nerves have tolerated the pressure well. But looking at his young age and the crowded disc, this does not appear to be a safe option. So wondering what should be the balanced approach. And for these therapeutic dilemmas, we decided to have a case presentation and take an opinion from the experts. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Narottama. A very difficult case to handle with, and a really poor responder to all forms of treatment. Various terminologies also have been used, and I invite Dr. Pradeep Pramalulu, who is an expert in identifying the root cause and disease modification and symptoms and all what he takes care of in glaucoma patients. So Dr. Pradeep, with so many therapeutic dilemmas what Dr. Narottama has put up, what is your take on this particular case?
It's a very difficult situation for the right eye. I think there's not a lot of great surgical options here. I think you have to be very concerned, given that he had aqueous misdirection, malignant glaucoma in the left eye, that it can happen in the right eye as well. And so, this would be a risk for essentially any intervention, whether it be trabeculectomy or even if one chose to do cataract surgery and something to lower the eye pressure concurrently, I would have worries about that also. Cyclophotocoagulation obviously had very poor outcome in the left eye. And so I'd also be very afraid to move forwards with that in the right eye as well. So even though watching the patient with such a high pressure is not necessarily what we would typically do, I would be very hesitant to move forward with any surgical intervention unless it really looked like there was some sort of progression, either on OCT or disc, or if there was a beginning of a visual field defect. I really don't like any of the surgical options over here. I mean, if I had to choose one, I would probably maybe think about either cataract surgery with endo laser or maybe a trabeculotomy type procedure, like a GAT procedure. But I'm not really happy with any of those options, so I would have a high threshold before starting them.
But how much do you think the IOP will reduce after a GAT procedure in this particular patient? And there was an history of trauma also, Dr. Narottama mentioned. And what trauma was it? Any surgery was done for a trauma? Was it a penetrating trauma?
No, there was no. It was not a penetrating trauma.
So no surgery was also, it was a virgin conjunctiva before you touched the eye for surgery.
And also the gonioscopy does not reveal evidence of significant trauma to the angles.
So Dr. Pradeep, with the GAT procedure, what would you think? I mean, how much IOP would get controlled with this procedure?
Well, I mean, I don't know that it's going to be that different than, I mean, it does work well I mean, the GAT procedure is done well in kind of juvenile open glaucomas, and people have done 360 trabeculotomy in uveitic glaucomas or steroid-induced glaucomas. So, I mean, this is, aside from the high hyperopia, this is very consistent with those cases. So I would expect a pressure probably in the less than 20 range as a result of that.
Thank you, Dr. Pradeep.
Yeah. Dr. Vijaya, ma'am, can I invite you for your comments on this
difficult case? Okay, well done, difficult case. I have few things, just comments to make. Looking at the case, I would call it as a juvenile open angle glaucoma because has a characteristic angle dysgenesis. Patient is only 19 years of age and has very high presentations, which is very characteristic of JOAG. Patient axillingly look at it, it's not very short eye, it is just 20.6, which is not unusual with hyperopia of 2.5 or 3, whatever is mentioned. I think considering the age of 19 years, patient is likely to live for next 70 years or so. Managing glaucoma well, the raised pressure well at this point is the primary aim, that we may not be able to obtain it with most of the procedures. They have done SLT. I don't think it is a suitable case for the SLT, especially when you have an angle dysgenesis. These eyes are not going to get benefited out of it. What I would suggest is to carefully look at the records in the left eye, what exactly caused the complication. Most of the times, the behavior of the other eye will be similar to the previous eye surgery. To go through the case sheet carefully, find out what all the problems has happened that has resulted in the aqueous misdirection. Was atropine was given, was the wound closure is tight enough, and was whatever modulation was done with the care so that sudden lowering of the IOP and sudden shallowing of the AC has not occurred. If you can document that, if you take those precautions and apply that onto the right eye surgery now, you will be able to avoid those complications and come out with a successful trabeculectomy outcome. Because any of the procedures, and in maybe 5 years down the line, pressures can go up again. And it's a phakic eye. It is you said AC is relatively shallow. So putting the tube is going to be a huge challenge. I think looking at what happened in your operated left eye, and then taking all those precautions to avoid that is very crucial to take care of the right eye. You said there is no progression, but I have my own doubts. If you look at your disc picture of initial 16 and the disc picture of 18, there is a change in the disc. And the same way, the visual field also shows the points which have depressed significantly in comparison to the first visual field. So you can call it as a JOAG. Why is the vision in the left eye is poor now? What is the cause? Because if you look at the macula is perfect. There is no hypotonia maculopathy. If you look at the visual field, the field defects are mainly in the inferior quadrant. The central visual field seems to be intact. So I'm not able to understand why there is a drop in vision in the left eye.
Ma'am, by now we have lost the left eye in August 2019. The fields were done in January 2018, and that time he had a marked retinal edema and the central macular edema. His vision was 636, and that was the time the fields were done. There is a generalized depression in that field.
But the photograph, what you have put up,
that is of
yeah, macula is perfectly normal.
That is not of 2019, but earlier.
Okay.
Okay.
So you think, ma'am, the goniotomy has no role in this case?
I'm very worried because this kind of a raised pressure is very typical of JOAG, and the fact that you are treating the left eye with the steroids, this pressure has gone up.
No, now we are not. Now he is not on steroidal eye drops.
If you leave the 36 pressure in spite of the thick corneas in the long run, patient will get into disc changes and the field changes.
Definitely. So you
definitely
think
you have to do the trabeculectomy. I would suggest that if I'm in that position, I would do trabeculectomy. But take all the precautions. What I have not taken, maybe you will know better. If you look at the case carefully, you will know whether how well that wound was taken care, how long patient was put on atropine. All those things will help you to manage the right.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Bala?
That was a nice discussion on a difficult case. Thank you, Dr. Vijaya ma'am, for such nice and practical comments. Now I'll